Today I'm going to talk to you about various strands of feminism. You have already know what feminism is, but let me start by saying that in almost all known societies, men and women are treated differently. There is no one singular current society or societies in the past in which men and women were treated in the same ways. And people have advanced various explanations for why men and women are treated differently, depending upon, the field they come from. So, for example, some may say that men and women are biologically different, they are supposed to perform different tasks in society, and hence they are treated differently. Different treatment is not problematic. What is more problematic is if this difference in how you see men and women leads to unequal treatment of both the sexes, which means that you start treating men and women differently and unequally. So difference in how you perceive them leads to different roles in society, and different roles leads to different statuses in society. And most of the time, men tend to have a superior status in a society, and women tend to have inferior status in society. So how do you explain this unequal treatment? Feminism, or the development of feminism, has brought into focus this idea that why do women have subordinate positions in society? They can be different, but why does this difference lead to a subordinate or to an inferior position in society? And feminism not only it's not just a scholarly field, it's not just an academic field where they do research on the idea of why women are treated differently like all other social sciences. What sets feminism as a discipline apart from other fields of inquiry is that not only do they do research, but they also actively try to politically change the status of women in society. So they are looking into reform. But you always have to remember that when you see something as problematic, the way they see the unequal treatment of men and women in society, they see it as a problem and they want to fix it. They want to correct it. They want to provide a corrective. Whenever you want to solve a problem, okay, the solution of the problem will depend upon how you understand the problem. Right? So, for example, there was failure of electricity today. If we see it as shortage of electricity, we are going to try to generate more electricity. But if we see it as the failure of human capacities to fix it, we are going to improve our human skills so that we can better manage electricity that we have. Or we believe that people are consuming too much electricity for unneeded tasks. We are going to come up with ingenious ways of trying to do the same tasks that can be done without electricity, that now consume electricity. So how we define or understand the problem is going to, have a bearing upon what solutions do we give it. So this is both interlinked with each other. So feminism, though it sees the problem unanimously that women are treated unequally, all within the field of feminism, with the broader field of academics, activists, scholars, practitioners, do not see the problem in the same light. Right? So their understanding of the problem is different. And these differences in their understanding of the problem has led to different strands of feminism or to different perspectives within feminism. So, for example, there's one particular group that may see this problem in a different light, and hence that is considered as one perspective. And there's this another group that sees this problem in another perspective, and that is another strand of feminism. Now, there are no clear-cut distinctions or lines between these various feminist perspectives or within these feminist strands. For example, all of them believe that women are treated unfairly in society. All of them believe that, this needs to be corrected. So they agree on that. But how has this problem originated? How can it be fixed? How should it be fixed? They all disagree on it. And that has led to various perspectives within feminism. So which means that the causes, they all disagree on causes of inequality and what actions should be taken to reduce this inequality, and hence we come up with various perspectives. I am going to discuss almost 5 perspectives today, and these are the bare minimum. As feminist scholarship and activism has advanced and taken new forms over the period of time, many new strands have been included. But broadly, we can sum them up in 5 various strands or perspectives: radical feminism, Marxist and socialist feminism, liberal feminism, black feminism, and postmodern feminism. When I reach black feminism, that particular strand of feminism has led to the idea that there are differences in the experiences of women. Women do not have a universal victimhood experience all over the world. So for example, there's a difference between the experiences of white women in America, and there are differences within the experiences or victimization of black women. And that has led to a whole new arena or field of difference, the politics of difference. And after that, we have post-colonial feminists, third world feminists, Muslim feminists, Islamic feminists, that has ushered in this whole new debate. But I'm not going to discuss that in detail. I'm just going to tell you how, the black feminism have chartered this particular idea that there is difference between the experiences of women, even in oppression. The first one, which is the radical feminism, is somehow the face of feminism. Right? When layman is asked, what do you think of feminists? They all think that feminists are some kind of man-haters, group of women who hate men, group of women who are against men. And they get this image because of this particular perspective within feminism, which is really radical. जो चीज़ radical होती है, उस चीज़ का ये मतलब होता है कि वो बहुत fundamental है. ठीक है, और वो बिलीव करते हैं अपनी कोड से किसी पर्टिकुलर फाउंडेशनल प्रिंसिपल्स में. सो रेडिकल फेमिनिज्म बिलीव्स that the exploitation of women in societies, the subordination of women in societies is to be blamed upon men. They think that patriarchy is the core of all evils. And you all know what patriarchy is. You have had lectures on it. This is the rule of the father or the superiority of men within a society. So they believe that it is primarily men who benefit from the oppression of women, right? And they are the ones who cause this kind of subordinate positions for women. So they are really radical, and they say that the relationship between men and women is that of the oppressor and the victim. So which means that women are an oppressed group, right? And they need to come together and fight against their oppressors to liberate themselves, right? So they believe that their oppressors are men and they need to fight against them. They see the entire society as patriarchal, and within this patriarchal society, the rulers are the men, and the slaves are the women. So it's a society dominated by men. The ruling class is all male. The subject class is all female. They're all women, right? They say not only are men as a singular thing that they want to, individual men that they want to subjugate women. They see family as the key institution, the biological family as the key institution that leads to the oppression of women within that. And they believe that within this idea that women need to form this biological family, a man and a woman need to get married and have children. This is actually the key of the subjugation of women, because with this schema starts the idea that women have to stay at home, look after children, and they are slave to men, and they are supposed to provide unpaid services in the service of men, and hence this idea that the biological family is the key of the oppression of women. They tend to believe that women have always been exploited by men. So there is no possibility of reform within the society. ऐसे नहीं हो सकता कि आप औरतें अपने women जो हैं वो अपनी rights के लिए move करें, या मर्दों को इन पे तरस आ जाए और over the period of time जो है वो ये society reform कर जाए. They believe that this society cannot be reformed. It can be destroyed and a new society built. And hence they believe in revolutionary changes. They say that only revolutions can bring or the possibility of liberation. Now, even within radical feminism, there are a number of various groups and strands that believe in different ways of thinking. For example, there are these women's groups like the female separatists. They believe that women's biology, particularly the fact that they can give birth, leads to their subordinate position in the society. You know, giving birth, having children actually makes women vulnerable. They take you back in primitive societies like hunting and gathering societies, in which, because women had to give birth, it's a biological fact, they were vulnerable in those positions, they had to stay home, and they needed the protection of the man who was not tied to the home and hearth due to these biological constraints. If it wasn't the biology, then there is another field strand that they believe that it is culture, not biology, but how culture sees biology that leads to the subjugation of women. And there are some radical feminists that believe that men maintain their superiority through violence. Okay? And because all three strands believe that men are the enemy, they believe that no collaboration with men is possible. So when these radical feminists, which were few in group, located in the West, when they started their feminist activism, they believed that they had to struggle for their rights, for liberation from this kind of bind where they had to live with men. They wanted to separate from men and fight for their rights. And hence, some of these radical groups were called separatist feminists. They believed that women should organize independently of men. They should not sort of collaborate with men. They should not have this kind of relationship, because the man is inherently going to exploit this woman because of her biology. And hence they need to organize independently of men, and they should create a society in which there is no domination by men. All these revolutionary feminist separatist groups actually formed in the 70s. They formed these communes where they were lived in women-only groups, and they tried to collectively raise their children. जैसे वो hippies वगैरह रहते हैं ना, so they were like this. There was another group within them which was even more radical than them. They were called the female supremacists. They believed that we do not even want to talk of equality with men, because women are superior to men in their characteristics. And because women are superior to men in their characteristics of nurturing, of emotion, of helping and bonding other people, of interdependence, women should be the ones ruling men. So patriarchy should be replaced with matriarchy. ठीक है? और वो इसके लिए वाय करती थी. They believe that men are the source of all evil. They not only inflict violence on women, बल्कि they are the cause of all other sources of violence and wars. So conflicts and wars within states, within societies, are primarily started by men. They are violent by nature. So masculine traits are to be discouraged and female traits are to be encouraged, and hence women should be superior, and we should have societies which are matriarchal in nature, ruled by women. Women should be the head of the households rather than men. There's another group which is called the radical libertarian feminists, and they believe that, you know, rather than deciding who has superior traits, whether women or men, right, one should try to achieve a state of androgyny, where both the sexes are very similar to each other. So men should take on the desirable characteristics of women. For example, nurturing and caring and emotion, they're all good, desirable characteristics that women have. अगर ये सारे characteristics ना हो तो human society survive ना करें, ठीक है? और इसी तरह मर्दों के लिए rationality, independence, इस किस्म के characteristics हैं जो कि valuable हैं human societies के. So we should try to reach a state of androgyny where, you know, there is no difference between men and women by the mere fact that men should try to take on better characteristics of, or desirable characteristics of women, and women should take over the desirable characteristics of men. Within this group, there's another type of radical cultural feminists, and they believe that female characteristics are actually better. So rather than achieving that state of androgyny, why shouldn't we all, rather than having matriarchy or patriarchy, why shouldn't we celebrate cultural values that are associated with women. Now, what kind of cultural characteristics are associated with women? Like I said before, interdependence. For example, men often make fun of this fact that women can never go anywhere alone. When you have to shop, when you have to do something, you'll always take 2 or 3 of friends along, and you'll try to do things together. This togetherness that is mocked upon is actually a very valuable skill, which means that you can actually work with other people. You can incorporate their views into what you want to do, which is interdependence, right? This is a valuable trait. This idea of community or nurturing, how to get people together, is a very feminine culture. They like sharing, they like emotion. Now, within the social sciences, there's this like kind of a whole lot of debate of these binaries. We'll study them in postmodern feminism, how we believe that intellect is somehow superior to emotion. And they believe that this is a very not only a Westocentric idea, but also a very masculinist idea, that intellect is superior to man. How can intellect be superior to man? What criteria did we use to say that intellect or rationality is superior to emotion? I'll give you an example from a movie that I saw a few years ago. There's a movie called I, Robot, and in which all vital services within a futuristic society are to be performed by robots. For example, policing, for example, rescuing. Now, within that kind of policing, there's this policeman who is driving with his child, and they have an accident, and the car falls into the water, right? To rescue them, a robot jumps in and tries to rescue, but the robot knows that it has time enough, calculated, rational, it's an artificial intelligence, it's an intelligent being. It knows that it can only rescue one person out of that car, and it has to make a decision which one to save. So it makes a logical, intelligent calculation. It checks their vitals, and it believes that the adult male has a 60% survival chance, and the child has probably 10-15% survival chance. And instead of rescuing the child, it rescues the man. What would have a human being done? It would have jumped in and rescued the child, because you always work on the emotion. A few years back, I was watching television, and these in Sindh, there are these rural communities, and one child fell into the water, and 3 women drowned trying to save that one child. One jumped in, then the other jumped in trying to rescue them, and then the third jumped in. So this is how human beings, this survival of human communities is not dependent upon this kind of intelligence. See, the survival of human race is dependent upon this kind of emotion where you would want to save. And within that entire film, the cop who's rescued can never, absolve himself of this responsibility that he was saved on behalf of a child. And the child is the future of that particular society. You save a child, you save a nation. There's a possibility of him growing up and continuing the human race, right? And hence this idea that these radical feminists believe that these emotions are also as valuable and superior, and why not try to achieve them? Why mock them then, saying that women can become very emotional? So, within feminism, we'll see liberal feminism, there has been this whole lot of debate that since intellect is considered superior, which is a masculine trait, liberal feminists would say that women are also as intelligent. Women can do the same tasks as men. But these radical feminists are saying that no, why do women need to adopt masculine tasks when they are superior in what they do themselves? Why shouldn't men adopt these tasks because they are more important? So this nurturing, this process, this peace and joy. They also believe that masculine tasks are related to war and death. They're always fighting with other men over material gains, and women do not have those kind of traits. Right? And hence, why not accept this kind of idea? So radical feminists speak of a world which is not probably very viable, right? And hence, there were a small, dedicated group, largely of women who did not want to have any kind of connections with male communities or male societies or male as individuals. But they are somehow the face of feminism, because in popular media जब आप feminists को दिखाते हैं तो आप उनको ऐसे male hating, ये बड़ी limited से groups हैं. Radical feminism though sounds very revolutionary. You would want to have a world which speaks of emotion and which is not non-hierarchical. एक और ये भी मेल masculine trait है कि वो hierarchy को बड़ा पसंद करते हैं ना, एक leader होगा, boss होगा, फिर एक subordinate होगा. औरतों की communities में इस किस्म की hierarchies नहीं होती. ठीक है, so non-hierarchical communities, and so they believe that they are good. So they may sound nice to women, but they have been criticized over the period of time. And what are the kind of criticisms people will say? People say that radical feminists constantly say men are the enemy. Patriarchy is the root cause of all women's oppression and must be destroyed if you want to build healthy societies, if you want to do away with women's victimization and oppression. But they never tell us where this patriarchy came from. So the account they give of patriarchy, you have also studied patriarchy in your previous lectures. They believe that this idea of patriarchy that radical feminists are always attacking is some kind of ahistorical context, which means that it is not जो चीज़ ahistorical होती है ना, इसका मतलब है उस पर टाइम एंड स्पेस कोई इम्पैक्ट नहीं करती. वो 100 साल पहले भी पेट्रियार्की ऐसी थी, 100 साल बाद भी पेट्रियार्की ऐसी है. अमेरिका में भी पेट्रियार्की ऐसी है, पाकिस्तान में भी पेट्रियार्की ऐसी है. लेकिन ऐसा तो नहीं है, ठीक है. 100 साल पहले पेट्रियार्की की कोई और फॉर्म थी और अब पेट्रियार्की की कोई और फॉर्म है. पेट्रियार्कल रिलेशंस विद इन पाकिस्तान आर नॉट द सेम एज पेट्रियार्कल रिलेशंस इन अफ्रीका और इन अमेरिका और इन वेस्टर्न यूरोप, right? And hence, one can sort of criticize them that what kind of patriarchy are you speaking of? You are not even speaking of any variations in the experiences of women, how they experience patriarchy based on, let's say, their class, based on, let's say, their ethnicity. पाकिस्तान में भी आप देखें कि औरतों के experiences are varied based on which economic class do they belong. Middle class women की problems और तरह patriarchy को experience करती हैं. Upper class women और तरह patriarchy को experience करती हैं, ठीक है. और poorer women की और तरह की patriarchy होती है. For example, there's a student of mine who did research on domestic maid servants who live in one of these Kachi Abadis in Islamabad, and many of these women actually claimed that their husbands were not bad people and that their husbands were willing to look after children and do housework, because they're really poor people and both of them have to work outside the house and both of them have to work inside the house. So they do look after their children, and they believe that their oppression did not come from their husbands beating them up, but their oppression came from the exploitation that they faced on an everyday basis when they went out to work, right? And hence this patriarchy has a different form, right? And so radical feminists see all men as oppressors, irrespective of their ethnicity, irrespective of their economic class, irrespective of their situation, across all time and space. 18th century में भी मर्द जालिम थे, 19th century में भी, 20th में भी, 21st में भी, ठीक है. There has been no change, right? Also, some have criticized it that radical feminism encourages women to emphasize their negative experiences of men, which is not a very workable situation, because women do have happy experiences with men, of benevolent fathers, of cooperative husbands, of really nice friends and colleagues. And hence, this idea that radical feminism says that all men are bad has given this reputation to feminism that they are all male haters, and hence they can never ever be any good men. But that is not a desirable or even a workable situation, right? And also radical feminism gives the idea that men are essentially bad and women are essentially good, which we all know is not true, right? So not every man is bad, though majority can be, and not every woman is good. And so it sort of gives us this kind of inaccurate picture of man being bad and a woman being good, and hence, she being victimized by this evil man. And it also suggests that men are enemy, which means that they cannot be trusted as fathers, friends, partners, political allies. Though even if we move out of our own particular domains of our households, feminists need men as political allies. Feminism is all politics, and hence feminism needs. See, this is an example of patriarchy. This boy is trying to take over my feminism ki class, and he is barely 2 years old now. The next perspective is very interesting, which is the Marxist or the socialist perspective. Marxist feminists believe that women are not exploited and oppressed by men, but they are exploited by capitalists. You have heard of Marxist theory before? No, Marx generally did not speak of women at all, but he gave this idea that society is largely divided into two classes. One is the bourgeois, which is the elite class, the haves of the society, and the other is the proletariat, which is the working class or the have-nots of the society. Okay? So there is a ruling class and there is an oppressed class, right? And the ruling class is rich because it continues to exploit the poor classes. And why they can exploit is because they have ownership of all the factors of production. So everything that can be produced through which other things, goods and services can be produced, is owned by them, and hence they oppressed the working classes. So Marxist socialists believe that within societies, women are not exploited by individual men or patriarchy, but they are exploited by this capitalist system. And they believe that women's work as unpaid housewives is essential to this capitalist exploitation of women, right? So for example, radical feminists also believe, because they believe that women's biology is the root cause of our oppression, which means that women give birth to children, they look after those children, and they do this kind of unpaid labor at home, hence they get exploited within a patriarchal system. The Marxist feminists believe that unpaid labor benefits not the individual patriarch, head of the household, your husband or your father or anybody else, but your unpaid labor provides benefit to the capitalist. And how does it do that? See, a capitalist has to pay for every factor of production. ठीक है, अगर वो फैक्ट्री लगाता है तो उसको क्या है, अपनी कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट करनी पड़ेगी, रॉ मटेरियल ख़रीदना पड़ेगा, उसको चलाने के लिए कुछ इन्वेस्ट करना पड़ेगा. लेकिन एक चीज़ ऐसी है जिसको पे करने के लिए या मेंटेन करने के लिए उसे नहीं पे करना पड़ता, और वो है उसकी लेबर, मैन पावर, राइट? एंड दैट मैन पावर और लेबर इज़ प्रोड्यूस्ड फॉर हिम बाय वुमेन फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट, राइट? Not only do women produce future generations of cheap labor, but they also refresh, maintain the current labor at no cost to the industrialists, so then they can send him back into the factory. And hence women's unpaid labor inside the household is vital for this capitalist. He benefits from it. When there are labor shortages, women move one step ahead of this unpaid labor. They step out of their homes and they serve as cheap reserve labor, cheap exploitable रिजर्व लेबर. जैसे हमने अब देखा ग्लोबलाइज्ड वर्ल्ड में कि इनफॉर्मल इकोनॉमी, छोटी छोटी इंडस्ट्री खुली हुई है हर जगह, और आप उस छोटी छोटी इंडस्ट्री में देखें मेजॉरिटी औरतें काम करती हैं. आप I-10 में चले जाएं, आप इंडस्ट्रियल यूनिट्स जितने लगे हुए हैं आपको पता चलेगा वो भरे हुए हैं औरतों से. वो क्यों भरे हुए हैं? विमेन आर अ गुड रिजर्व ऑफ चीप एक्सप्लॉयटेबल लेबर. आप उनको कम पैसे देते हैं, अगर वो शोर मचाती हैं इस पर कि आप हमें कम पैसे दे रहे हैं, आप उनको नौकरी से निकाल देते हैं. ठीक है, बिकॉज दे आर फॉर women, they cannot go back home and complain that we were being exploited, because we live in kind of a patriarchal society. Their families would say, आपका काम क्या था कि आप फैक्ट्री में काम करने गई हैं? You should sit back at home and starve rather than work in a factory. So they are easy to exploit. Women rarely form labor unions. They are never members of labor unions. So it is very easy for you to actually fire them. Okay? So they are very good source of cheap exploitable labor which is of benefit. उसका सारा उस exploitation का benefit किसको जा रहा है? Capitalist को जा रहा है. Hence they believe, Marxist feminists, that working class men यानी poor men, blue collared laborers are also being exploited by capitalists. So women should get together with these working class men and they should overthrow the power of the capitalist. ठीक है? They too, like radical feminists, believe in revolutionary change. उनका ये ख्याल है कि जो current system है, करंट सेटअप है उसमें रिफॉर्म की कोई पॉसिबिलिटी नहीं है. ओनली रेवोल्यूशनरी चेंज कैन improve this system, which means that you need to destroy the old setup and build a new one. और मार्क्सिस्ट के लिए न्यू वन क्या है? कम्युनिस्ट सोसाइटी वेयर एवरीथिंग इज ओन्ड कम्युनली बाय एवरीबडी. ठीक है, तो ओनरशिप नहीं होती किसी एक की, प्राइवेट प्रॉपर्टी नहीं होती, और फिर उसमें लोग मर्द और औरत दोनों एक्सप्लॉइट नहीं होंगे. ठीक है, आइडियली तो आपको ये लगता है कि बड़ा आइडियल टाइप सिस्टम है जिसमें हर किस्म की गरीब लोगों की एक्सप्लॉइटेशन भी ख़त्म हो जाएगी और साथ साथ औरतों की भी एक्सप्लॉइटेशन ख़त्म हो जाएगी.